Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever held back your dreams, your voice, or even your true self for fear of being judged or hated? How many times have you dimmed your light just so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable? Today I am here to tell you, let them hate you. Being your authentic self is one of the most liberating and rewarding experiences in life. Yet it comes with a significant cost: the disapproval, judgment, and even hatred of others. Authenticity, by its nature, challenges the norms and expectations that society has come to accept. When you decide to show up as your true self, whether that means expressing an unpopular opinion, choosing a non-traditional career path, or simply living in a way that feels genuine to you, you will inevitably encounter resistance. People who prioritize blending in or adhering to societal standards may not understand or accept your choices. But this is the reality of authenticity. It comes with a price, and that price is often the loss of approval from others. Many people live their entire lives without fully expressing who they are, driven by a desire to avoid judgment and conflict. They make decisions based on what will gain acceptance from their friends, family, or society at large, rather than what truly fulfills them. However, suppressing your true self to gain the approval of others may feel comfortable in the short term, but it ultimately leads to a life of regret and dissatisfaction. When you sacrifice your core values and dreams to fit in or avoid criticism, you're only betraying yourself. It's like living in a cage where the bars are formed by other people's expectations and your own fear of stepping out. And while this cage may feel safe, it also limits your growth, freedom, and happiness. But true authenticity requires immense courage. It means acknowledging who you are, what you want, and what you believe, and then having the bravery to live that truth out loud, regardless of the consequences. The moment you start doing this, the dynamics of your relationships and interactions may begin to shift. People who once supported you when you conform may no longer offer the same level of acceptance when you deviate from the norm. You may lose friends or encounter criticism from family members who cannot understand your choices. You may even face public backlash or judgment from strangers if your actions are visible and challenge widely held beliefs. This backlash can be painful. No one likes to feel rejected or misunderstood, but it's essential to understand that other people's opinions are not a reflection of your worth. Instead, they often reveal the fears, insecurities, or limitations of the people expressing them. When someone hates or criticizes you for being true to yourself, it's usually because your courage to live authentically reminds them of their own inability to do so. It makes them uncomfortable to see someone who is willing to break free from conformity when they themselves have chosen the path of least resistance. Your authenticity becomes a mirror, reflecting the compromises they have made in their own lives. The cost of authenticity is further complicated by the fact that, as human beings, we are wired to seek connection and community. Being disliked or hated feels like a threat to our sense of belonging, which can trigger deep-seated fears and anxiety. However, the paradox of seeking approval is that it never truly brings us the connection we crave. Real connection is only possible when we are honest about who we are. If people only love you when you wear a mask, then that love is not for the real you. It's for a persona you've created to make others comfortable. And that kind of love will always feel hollow. When you choose to live authentically, you create space for genuine relationships to form. The people who resonate with the real you will naturally be drawn to you, while those who are only interested in a version of you that played by the rules may drift away. It's a filtering process that, while painful, ultimately leads to a richer, more meaningful life. True friends and supporters will respect your courage, even if they don't always agree with your choices. They will understand that your worth isn't tied to your ability to please others, but to your ability to stand strong in your convictions. Yet, even with the knowledge that authenticity leads to deeper, more fulfilling connections, it's still difficult to let go of the need for widespread acceptance. It's hard to be disliked or hated, and it's even harder to stay true to yourself when the criticism is relentless. But here's the truth: living a life dictated by other people's approval will never lead to happiness. It will only lead to a life that feels small and suffocating. On the other hand, embracing your true self, despite the cost, will bring a sense of liberation that is unmatched. Being authentic is not about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about being honest, vulnerable, and real. It's about saying, "This is who I am, and I'm okay if that doesn't align with everyone else's vision of who I should be." It's about knowing that the right people will value your true self, and that your path is valid, even if it's not widely accepted. The price of authenticity is high, but the rewards, a life of integrity, purpose, and genuine connections, are worth every moment of discomfort. Criticism is a reality we all face when we dare to be different, pursue our passions, or simply live in a way that is true to ourselves. It is often a painful experience that can make us question our choices and wonder if we should change to gain acceptance. However, it is crucial to recognize that most of the time, criticism and hatred are not really about us. They are more about the people expressing them, their own insecurities, fears, and struggles. Understanding this can be a powerful way to reframe negative experiences and find strength in the face of disapproval. When someone judges you harshly or expresses dislike for who you are or what you are doing, it often stems from something unresolved within themselves. Human beings are complex creatures, and our reactions to others are often rooted in our inner world. When someone sees you living in a way that challenges their beliefs or reminds them of their limitations, they might respond with criticism or even hatred as a defense mechanism. For example, if you decide to follow a non-traditional career path, like becoming an artist or starting your own business, people who have settled for a life they don't love might criticize your choice. They might call you foolish or irresponsible, not because your path is wrong, but because your courage to pursue it highlights their own fear of taking risks. This psychological dynamic is quite common. When we see someone doing something we wish we could do but have convinced ourselves we can't, it creates a sense of discomfort. Instead of facing that discomfort and asking ourselves why we feel this way, it is often easier to project negativity onto the person who triggered those feelings. It's a way for people to protect themselves from the painful truth that they have perhaps made choices out of fear or settled for less than what they truly wanted. Another reason people criticize or hate is that your success or happiness may make them feel threatened or envious. It's a sad but common reality that some people feel diminished when they see others thriving. Instead of being inspired by your achievements or using your success as motivation to improve their own lives, they may lash out to bring you down to their level. It's the classic crabs in a bucket mentality, where one crab tries to climb out and the others pull it back down. This behavior often comes from a place of inadequacy, where people feel that someone else's success somehow makes their own life feel smaller or less meaningful. Criticism can also come from people who feel the need to conform strictly to societal norms. When you live authentically or express unconventional beliefs, you disrupt the social narrative that they have built their lives around. Many people find comfort in following the same path as everyone else. It gives them a sense of security, a feeling that they are doing what is right and expected. But when someone comes along and challenges that norm by doing something different, it forces them to question if the conventional path is truly the only or best way. Rather than confront the discomfort, they may respond by attacking the person who is daring to be different. It's also important to consider that some people are simply uncomfortable with change or anything that disrupts their worldview. If your actions or beliefs don't align with what they have always known, they may feel the need to defend their way of life by criticizing you. This is not a reflection of any flaw in your choices. It's a natural human tendency to resist what feels unfamiliar or challenging. People find safety in the familiar, and anything that threatens that familiarity can trigger negative reactions. Recognizing that criticism is often a reflection of the critic's inner world, rather than an accurate assessment of your value or decisions, can help you navigate negative feedback with more resilience. It can remind you not to take every harsh word or hateful comment to heart. Of course, constructive criticism, which is meant to help you grow and improve, is different and should be welcomed. But when criticism is rooted in judgment, envy, or insecurity, it should be viewed with a discerning eye. You are not obligated to internalize every piece of negativity thrown your way. In fact, there is a certain freedom in understanding that not everyone's opinion of you matters. The approval of others is not a reliable measure of your worth or the validity of your path. People's opinions are shaped by their experiences, biases, and unresolved emotional struggles, which means their judgments of you are often more about them than about you. Knowing this can empower you to stay true to yourself, even when the noise of negativity is loud. This doesn't mean criticism won't hurt. It is human to feel affected when others express dislike or disapproval. However, reframing criticism as a reflection of someone else's inner struggles can help you build emotional armor. It allows you to approach the situation with compassion, both for yourself and, if you can manage it, for the person criticizing you. When you see that their negative reaction is a product of their own journey, you might find it easier to let go of the hurt and keep moving forward. Ultimately, the way people respond to your authenticity is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to live in alignment with your values, dreams, and truth. Letting go of the need for approval and understanding that criticism is often rooted in the critic's own pain or insecurity can liberate you to be yourself fully. And being true to yourself, even when it makes others uncomfortable, is one of the greatest acts of courage and self-love. Throughout history, every great figure who dared to think differently, push boundaries, or introduce new ways of living and thinking faced fierce resistance. It is a pattern as old as human civilization. People who bring change are rarely met with open arms. Instead, they often encounter suspicion, hostility, and even hatred. This is because human beings are creatures of habit and comfort. We tend to resist change, especially when that change threatens the status quo or challenges long-held beliefs. This is an essential truth to understand if you are committed to making an impact, pursuing an extraordinary dream, or simply living in a way that defies conventional expectations. When you embark on a path that few understand or agree with, you will inevitably face opposition. This can come in many forms: criticism, disbelief, or outright antagonism. For some, this is enough to deter them from following through on their dreams. The fear of being judged or rejected is powerful and can make even the most passionate dreamers second-guess their journey. But understanding that greatness attracts resistance can change the way you interpret this pushback. Rather than seeing it as a sign that you are on the wrong path, you can view it as validation that you are onto something meaningful and impactful. Consider the lives of some of the most influential figures in history. Martin Luther King Jr., for instance, was a beacon of hope and a fierce advocate for equality, yet he was met with unimaginable hatred and opposition. His message of love and unity threatened a society deeply entrenched in racial inequality, and those who benefited from this inequality fought fiercely to silence him. King knew that the resistance he faced was a sign that his work was meaningful, that his vision of a more just society was powerful enough to frighten those who wanted to maintain the status quo. Similarly, the world of art and science has countless examples of visionaries who were ridiculed and rejected in their time. Vincent van Gogh, one of the most celebrated painters today, lived most of his life in poverty and obscurity, with many of his contemporaries dismissing his work as worthless. It was only after his death that the world began to appreciate his genius. His story serves as a reminder that when you dare to create something new, something that hasn't been seen or understood before, there will be people who fail to see its value. Their resistance doesn't diminish the worth of your creation, it only highlights how ahead of its time it may be. In science, figures like Galileo Galilei faced similar backlash. When Galileo supported the then controversial idea that the Earth revolved around the Sun, he was vehemently opposed by the Church and much of society. His ideas challenged the established worldview, and instead of being celebrated for his groundbreaking discovery, he was persecuted and even put under house arrest. Yet his contributions laid the foundation for modern astronomy, proving that the resistance he faced was not a reflection of the validity of his ideas, but rather of the world's unwillingness to embrace new truths. What these stories have in common is that they illustrate a critical point: when you are doing something truly innovative or meaningful, it is almost inevitable that you will face resistance. The very nature of innovation means that you are stepping into uncharted territory. People are often afraid of what they don't understand, and your willingness to venture into the unknown can make them uncomfortable. It challenges their beliefs, disrupts their routines, and forces them to confront possibilities they'd rather not consider. Resistance, therefore, is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you are pushing boundaries and making an impact. Modern innovators like Elon Musk continue to face similar resistance, even as they revolutionize multiple industries. Whether it's skepticism about electric vehicles, space exploration, or even developing neural interfaces, Musk's ideas have consistently met with doubt and criticism. Yet his persistence in the face of skepticism has led to advancements that were once thought impossible. This isn't to say that every idea or project should be immune to critique. Healthy debate is essential for growth. But the point is that meaningful change often attracts a high level of scrutiny and doubt. Even beyond historical and public examples, the same principle applies to our personal lives. Whether it's choosing to start a business, adopt a minimalist lifestyle, or advocate for a cause that few support, your personal pursuit of something meaningful will likely face resistance. Family members might express concern, friends might distance themselves, or society might label you as unconventional or unrealistic. These reactions are not necessarily because your choices are wrong, but because people feel uneasy when someone challenges the norms they have accepted without question. But here's the empowering truth: resistance is a sign that you are doing something worth noticing. If everyone were comfortable with what you are doing, it would likely mean that your actions are not creating much of an impact. Pioneering new ideas or lifestyles means that you are introducing something unfamiliar, and it takes time for people to adjust or recognize the value of what you bring to the table. When you face opposition, use it as a reminder of the importance of your work or your vision. Let it be a source of motivation rather than discouragement. It is essential to be prepared for this resistance. Knowing that it is a natural part of any journey toward greatness can help you develop the resilience needed to keep moving forward. Instead of taking criticism or hatred personally, you can view it as a necessary step in the process of changing minds or creating something new. Your impact might not be immediately recognized, but that doesn't mean it isn't meaningful. Stay committed to your vision and understand that the very resistance you face could be the strongest indicator that you are on the right path. In the end, the world has always needed people who are willing to face resistance and push forward anyway. These are the people who inspire change, who bring about progress, and who ultimately shape the future. So, if you find yourself facing resistance, remember that you are in good company. Every step you take in pursuit of your dream or vision is a testament to your courage, and every obstacle you overcome is a mark of your determination to make a difference. Keep going, and let the resistance fuel your fire, not extinguish it. Living to please everyone may seem like a noble or even practical way to live, but it is a path that leads almost inevitably to unfulfilled dreams and deep regret. Many people spend their entire lives trying to be what others want them to be. They shape their identities and decisions around what will make their parents proud, keep their friends happy, or earn the approval of society at large. Yet, the painful irony of this approach is that no matter how much effort you put into seeking approval, it will never bring you the sense of contentment and purpose you are truly longing for. The desire to be liked and accepted is deeply embedded in human nature. As social creatures, we are biologically programmed to crave connection and community. Our ancestors depended on being part of a group for survival, and being ostracized could mean life-threatening danger. Even though modern society no longer has the same life or death stakes, our instincts remain the same. We are still wired to feel anxiety when we sense disapproval, and this fear can lead us to prioritize fitting in over being true to ourselves. However, the price of this need for approval is incredibly steep. When you make your choices based on what others think is best for you, you gradually lose touch with your own desires, values, and aspirations. You become so focused on external expectations that you forget to ask yourself what you really want out of life. You end up living someone else's version of success, a version that might look impressive on the outside but leaves you feeling empty on the inside. It is a slow and insidious process, one that can lead to a life filled with accomplishments that feel hollow, relationships that feel shallow, and an annoying sense of something missing. Consider, for example, the person who chooses a career based on societal prestige rather than personal passion. Perhaps they become a doctor, lawyer, or investment banker because it's what their parents dreamed for them or what society deems impressive. They may spend years or even decades climbing the ladder of success, accumulating wealth and accolades, but deep down, they feel disconnected from their work. They wake up every morning with a sense of dread, feeling like they are living someone else's life. They may even reach a point where they ask themselves, is this all there is? That question is a haunting reminder that living for approval from others can never satisfy the soul. The cost is not just felt in the big life decisions, but in the small, everyday compromises. Maybe you pretend to like certain things you don't actually enjoy or agree with opinions you don't believe in, just to keep the peace. Maybe you stay in relationships that don't serve you or sacrifice your mental and emotional well-being to meet the expectations of others. Each time you make these compromises, you are teaching yourself that your own voice and desires are less important. Over time, this erodes your self-worth and makes it even harder to recognize who you truly are and what you stand for. The saddest part is that this path often leads to regret. When people look back on their lives, they don't usually regret the risks they took or the unconventional paths they followed. Instead, they regret the chances they didn't take, the dreams they didn't pursue, and the way they allowed the opinions of others to shape their destinies. Imagine reaching the end of your life and realizing that you never lived for yourself, that you spent your precious time trying to make others happy at the expense of your own fulfillment. That realization can be devastating, and it's why so many older people advise the younger generation to live boldly and true to themselves. What makes this all the more tragic is that, in reality, you can never please everyone anyway. People's opinions are fickle and ever-changing. What someone approves of today, they may criticize tomorrow. You could shape your entire life around trying to satisfy someone's expectations, only to find that their view of you has shifted, or that they move on, leaving you stuck with the consequences of choices you made for their sake. Approval is a moving target, and trying to hit it consistently is a recipe for frustration and self-abandonment. Instead of living for others' validation, imagine the freedom that comes from living in alignment with your own values and desires. This doesn't mean being selfish or ignoring the needs of those you care about. Rather, it means honoring your truth and making decisions that allow you to live a life of meaning and purpose. People who choose this path often find that their relationships improve, even if they initially face resistance from those who expect them to conform. When you live authentically, the people who truly care about you will respect and support you, even if they don't always understand your choices. And those who only value the version of you that fit into their expectations may drift away, but that's okay. Letting go of these relationships creates space for more genuine connections. Living for yourself may feel risky at first, especially if you have spent most of your life trying to make others happy. But the rewards are profound. When you prioritize your own dreams and values, you begin to feel a sense of fulfillment and purpose. You wake up excited for the day because you are living a life that feels true to who you are. You also become more resilient to criticism because you understand that your worth isn't tied to whether everyone approves of you. You know that you are following your own path, and that knowledge provides a sense of strength and inner peace. It's also worth noting that by living authentically, you may inspire others to do the same. When people see someone who is unafraid to live according to their own truth, it can be a powerful example. It shows them that it's possible to break free from societal expectations and pursue a life that feels meaningful. Your courage can serve as a beacon for others who are struggling to find their own way. In the end, the cost of living for approval is too high. It robs you of your dreams, your voice, and your sense of self. But choosing to live for yourself, even if it means disappointing others, is the most important investment you can make. You are here for a reason, with gifts and passions that are uniquely yours. Honor them, and don't let the fear of disapproval keep you from living the life you were meant to live. People-pleasing can feel deceptively virtuous. On the surface, it seems like a good thing to be accommodating, agreeable, and always ready to help others. Society often praises individuals who put everyone else's needs before their own, labeling them as selfless, caring, and considerate. However, there is a hidden dark side to being a people-pleaser. It's a lifestyle that comes with an invisible but significant cost: your own well-being, happiness, and sense of self. The more you bend over backward to meet the demands and expectations of others, the more you sacrifice your own needs, desires, and even your identity. The instinct to please people often comes from a desire to be liked, accepted, or seen as valuable. It's deeply ingrained, often rooted in childhood experiences where we learned that being agreeable made us more lovable, or that avoiding conflict made us feel safe. But as we grow older, these coping mechanisms can become deeply unhealthy. People pleasers often live in a constant state of anxiety, worrying about whether they have upset someone, or if they are doing enough to keep others happy. This can lead to a never-ending cycle of stress and exhaustion, as they pour their energy into fulfilling everyone else's demands, often at the expense of their own physical and emotional health. One of the most damaging aspects of people-pleasing is that it creates a pattern of self-neglect. When you are constantly focused on making others happy, your own needs inevitably fall by the wayside. You might neglect your self-care, sacrifice your dreams, or even tolerate toxic behavior just to avoid conflict or disappointment. Over time, this leads to burnout, feelings of resentment, and a loss of personal identity. Imagine the person who stays in an unfulfilling relationship because they are too afraid to hurt their partner's feelings, or the employee who never stands up to a demanding boss and ends up working long hours that ruin their health and well-being. In these scenarios, the cost of trying to please everyone is painfully clear. Self-neglect is not just about skipping a workout or missing out on sleep. It goes much deeper. It's about denying yourself the chance to live a life that feels true and fulfilling. People pleasers often put their own dreams and passions on hold, believing that they can get back to them later when everyone else's needs have been taken care of. But life doesn't work that way. The years slip by, and that dream of becoming an artist, traveling the world, or starting your own business remains unfulfilled. It's easy to justify these sacrifices in the moment, thinking you are doing the right thing by being there for others. But when you look back, the regret can be overwhelming. Moreover, people-pleasing can compromise your integrity. In the quest to keep everyone happy, you may find yourself saying yes to things you don't believe in, agreeing with opinions you actually disagree with, or pretending to be someone you're not. This erosion of authenticity can be profoundly damaging. Each time you go along with something that doesn't align with your values, you move further away from who you really are. It creates an internal conflict that can leave you feeling lost and disconnected from your true self. You might feel like a chameleon, constantly changing colors to fit in, but never truly feeling at home anywhere. The consequences of people-pleasing also impact your relationships. On the surface, it may seem that people pleasers have harmonious relationships because they are so agreeable and helpful. But the reality is that these relationships are often built on a shaky foundation. When you are always focused on making others happy, the relationship becomes one-sided and your own needs are overlooked. This can lead to a deep sense of unfulfillment, where you feel like you are always giving but never receiving. It's common for people pleasers to attract individuals who take advantage of their kindness or who are more than happy to benefit from the lack of boundaries. Over time, this dynamic can lead to resentment and even the breakdown of relationships, as the people pleaser realizes they have been sacrificing too much for too little in return. Additionally, constantly trying to please everyone creates unrealistic expectations. When you are always available, always agreeable, and always putting others first, you teach people to expect that from you. It sets a precedent that can be incredibly hard to break. If one day you decide to say no or assert your own needs, the people around you may react with shock or even anger. They are so used to you bending to their will that any deviation feels like a betrayal. This makes it even harder to break free from the people-pleasing pattern, as the backlash from setting boundaries can be intense. Yet breaking free from this cycle is essential for your well-being. It starts with recognizing that your worth is not tied to how much you do for others or how well you avoid conflict. You deserve to have your own needs met, your own dreams pursued, and your own voice heard. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it is a necessary act of self-respect. Learning to say no can be uncomfortable, especially if you have spent your entire life saying yes, but it is a skill worth developing, and with practice it becomes easier. Self-care and self-prioritization are not acts of selfishness, they are acts of self-preservation. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and constantly giving without replenishing yourself is a recipe for disaster. Prioritizing your own well-being doesn't mean you stop caring for others, it just means you also care for yourself. When you take time to nurture your own needs and pursue your own happiness, you actually become a better friend, partner, and contributor to society. You show up as a whole and fulfilled person, rather than a drained and resentful one. Breaking free from people-pleasing also means embracing the discomfort of knowing that not everyone will like or agree with you. And that's okay. It's impossible to be liked by everyone, and trying to do so will only leave you feeling empty and exhausted. Instead, focus on living authentically and forming genuine connections with people who appreciate you for who you truly are, not for how much you do for them. The right people will respect your boundaries and love you for the real you, not for the version of yourself that sacrifices everything to keep the peace. In the end, the cost of people-pleasing is far too high. It drains your energy, compromises your values, and leaves you feeling lost and unfulfilled. But the good news is that you have the power to change this pattern. By prioritizing your own well-being, setting boundaries, and living authentically, you can reclaim your life and start living in a way that is both fulfilling and true to who you are. It may not be easy, but the freedom and happiness that come from living authentically are well worth the effort. You said. Spend 6 key point around 800 without heading. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. When you choose a path that defies convention or challenges societal expectations, there will inevitably be people who criticize or even attempt to undermine your efforts. This criticism can take many forms: harsh words, judgmental glances, or even public rejection. The human tendency to criticize what we don't understand or what makes us uncomfortable is a deeply ingrained part of our social psyche. It's often easier to dismiss someone's bold ideas or unique journey than to confront the discomfort that their path stirs within us. However, learning how to handle criticism is one of the most powerful skills you can cultivate, especially if you want to live a life that is true to your own values and dreams. The first step in handling criticism is to recognize that it is a natural part of the human experience. Everyone who has ever attempted to innovate, break boundaries, or step outside of the conventional mold has faced some form of backlash. Even the most respected figures in history were often ridiculed or criticized in their time. The great scientist Galileo, who was persecuted for supporting the heliocentric model of the solar system, was mocked and condemned by those who clung to outdated beliefs. Despite this, his work eventually changed the course of history. Likewise, artists like Vincent van Gogh, who only sold one painting during his lifetime, faced rejection and harsh judgment from the art world, but today he is considered one of the greatest painters in history. These examples demonstrate that criticism, although difficult to bear, is not always a reflection of the worth of your work. Often it is a reflection of the critic's own limitations, biases, or inability to comprehend something new. It's important to understand that not all criticism is valid, And not all of it is meant to help or improve you. Some criticism is simply a reflection of jealousy or insecurity. People who feel threatened by your success or your difference from the norm may attempt to tear you down in an effort to make themselves feel better. This is particularly true when you are breaking new ground or embarking on a path that makes others uncomfortable. When you challenge the status quo, you force people to examine their own lives, decisions, and assumptions, and for some, this can be a painful process. Instead of embracing the discomfort and reflecting on the deeper implications of your choices, they might react by criticizing you, often in a misguided attempt to protect their own sense of identity or security. In these cases, it is essential to remember that their criticism is not a reflection of your worth or your vision. It is an external response to the discomfort your choices bring to their world. This doesn't mean that you should dismiss all feedback. Constructive criticism, if given with good intentions, can be invaluable in helping you grow and refine your work. However, when faced with negativity or judgment that comes from a place of envy, fear, or ignorance, you must learn to let it go. You are under no obligation to internalize the opinions of those who don't understand your journey or who are unwilling to see the value in your work. Learning to accept criticism without letting it define you requires cultivating a strong sense of self and a clear understanding of your own values and goals. When you are grounded in your own beliefs, you become less swayed by the opinions of others. This is not to say that you should ignore feedback or avoid constructive conversations, but rather that you should learn to discern between helpful input and destructive criticism. You must be able to differentiate between a criticism that has the potential to help you improve and one that is simply an attack on your character or ideas. The former is worth considering, while the latter can be dismissed as noise that does not deserve your attention or energy. One effective way to handle criticism is to reframe it as a sign that you are making an impact. If your choices or actions were insignificant, no one would waste their time criticizing you. In fact, if you aren't facing any opposition or negativity, it may be a sign that you are playing it too safe or not pushing boundaries enough. Criticism often arises when you are doing something that challenges the established order or forces others to question their own assumptions. Instead of seeing this as a setback, view it as an affirmation that you are making waves and that your work is creating ripples in the world. The bigger the impact, the greater the resistance. It's also important to remember that criticism often reveals more about the person giving it than it does about you. People who criticize tend to project their own fears, insecurities, and limitations onto others. They may be threatened by your confidence, your success, or your ability to do something that they feel incapable of doing. Their criticism is a reflection of their inner struggles, not a judgment of your capabilities. Once you recognize this, you can start to detach yourself from their opinions and see criticism for what it truly is, an outward projection of their own unresolved issues. In addition, criticism can sometimes be a valuable opportunity for growth. While you should be selective about whose opinions you take to heart, there are occasions when feedback, even if harsh, can provide you with valuable insights. When you approach criticism with an open mind and a willingness to learn, it becomes a tool for self-improvement. Ask yourself, is there any truth to this criticism? Can it help me become better at what I do? If the answer is yes, take the opportunity to learn and grow. If not, let it go and move forward with confidence. Surrounding yourself with supportive, like-minded people can also make it easier to deal with criticism. When you have a strong network of friends, mentors, or colleagues who believe in your vision and offer constructive feedback, it becomes easier to filter out the negativity. These people can remind you of your strengths and help you stay focused on your goals. Their support provides you with the emotional strength to navigate the challenges that come with pursuing something meaningful and different. Building a community of people who understand and appreciate your journey can provide the reassurance you need when faced with external criticism. Ultimately, handling criticism is about resilience and perspective. It's about being able to stand firm in your beliefs, even when others don't understand or appreciate what you're doing. It's about cultivating a sense of inner strength that allows you to keep moving forward, regardless of external opinions. When you can approach criticism with an open mind, a strong sense of self, and a clear focus on your goals, you will find that you are better equipped to handle the inevitable pushback that comes with pursuing a meaningful and unique path. Criticism will always be a part of the journey, but it doesn't have to derail you. Instead, it can become an indicator that you are on the right track, making waves and creating a life that is truly yours.